This program was first broadcast on Canterbury's community access radio station Plains FM 96.9 and was made with the assistance of New Zealand On Air.
It's time for Emergence News on Plains FM 96.9, citizen-made radio.
Kia ora and welcome. Greetings to Emergence News, the program dedicated to news and information regarding the emergence of Maitreya and the Masters of Wisdom. Wise teachers, compassionate and incorruptible. They are here, they're emerging amongst us to inspire us, to change the course of our future, to show us how to reverse the damage that we are doing to ourselves and to our home planet Earth. So who are they and where are they? Discover for yourself today some of the answers. The emergence of Maitreya is underway. The emergence of Maitreya and the Masters of Wisdom. We've got some questions to discuss today. How do we fix a broken world? 1, we need peace. 2, we need justice. And 3, we need change, real change. In the midst of chaos, fear and separatism gripping today's world, a world teacher has come. He is Maitreya. Yet no matter what the place of residence, what the colour of the skin, or what the religious belief, the world, humanity, the people are clamouring for peace, justice, and a sense of security. So when we say we need real change, I'll give you an obvious example. The political will, and we were talking about this just before we came on air, the political will is still not sufficient regarding environmental concerns. If our leaders will not, they refuse to lead, then the citizens of the world will. It's called people power.
Yeah.
We see citizens such as David Attenborough, Al Gore, DiCaprio, David Suzuki, we've talked about him a few times on the program, and currently a 16-year-old called Greta Thunberg. In fact, here in New Zealand, we have both the ridiculous and wonderful example of our children protesting during school time. In fact, students and young people seem to intuitively realise the urgency better. In America, there are dozens of examples, inspiring examples of children working on reclaiming wetlands, saving forests, providing residents with natural and fresh food. And there she is online at the moment, Greta Thunberg. John.
Greta Thunberg, yes, a superstar, 16 years old.
Yeah. And she makes our news. Oh, what did I say? Did I say Thunberg? It's Thunberg.
Thunberg, yeah, Greta Thunberg.
Thanks for correcting me there, sir. He's warming up, ladies and gentlemen. He was a bit cold when we first got in the studio, but those thermals and the fingerless gloves are now they're now working. They've got the blood circulating. So some of these children that we're talking about, they're as young as 8 years old. And they do understand the problem intuitively, don't they?
Yes.
Because our leaders are refusing to act with urgency. Look, even our insurance companies are responding with urgency. Our premiums are going up all the time, aren't they?
They're going up urgently. Yeah.
They are. We now face higher premiums. Why do our leaders, our politicians, refuse to act swiftly? Why are our South Island rivers dry? Why is our water quality in the Hawke's Bay poor? Same as Canterbury, in fact. Plastic waste issues. We need change and we need real change. Change that at its core is not motivated by profit margins like our insurance companies. Some of our business leaders claim that our environmental concerns are based on yesterday's science. That's the argument you hear from the Trump administration, isn't it? If this is true, then why are millions of children across all countries, culture and religion protesting against our business and political leaders? because it is our children that are asking the tough questions. Mm-hmm. On today's program, we look at Benjamin Creme. He refers to our teachings of Maitreya and the hierarchy as the art of living. His books are accessible. They're presented in a volume of work which explains, develops and introduces you to concepts and information released by the hierarchy since 1875. In truth, the information has been released a lot earlier than that, but there was a concentrated burst around the late 1800s, particularly
Theosophical Society.
through Theosophy, wasn't there? So on the program with me today are John and Peter. They join me today to discuss and present further insight into these teachings. So Peter, you're looking at enlightenment today.
Yes, well, I was just fascinated by light, and which leads to enlightenment, of course. And we're looking at various aspects of that, and I'm sure you'll find that interesting.
And if you're familiar with the writings of Alice Bailey, then you'll be aware that she writes on the laws of spiritual psychology. Mm. And John, you've been studying one of these laws.
I think study is a very strong word, Nigel. I've read a few pages, but yes, the laws of life. What a topic! Yeah.
As Creme says, the art of life,
yes,
the art of living.
I'm more excited than normal, which means you'll have to calm me down.
He's warming up, ladies and gentlemen. Maitreya's teachings are the focus of today's program. Stay with us. Plenty more coming on Emergence News.
The first stanza of the Great Invocation, given to the world by Maitreya the Christ in 1945, goes like this. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men. Let light descend on earth. This, then, is one of the keys to enlightenment. I've gone to Benjamin Creme's book, The Great Approach, and a letter by the Master on light.
It's a great topic.
Every century brings mankind closer to his goal, the demonstration in all its perfection of the light of God. In this way, man becomes what he potentially is, a living God. Each incarnation marks a step cut in the mountain of ascent. With each such experience, man adds to his vehicles a modicum of light, subtly changing thereby the vibration of his bodies. When all his bodies are thus vibrating to the frequency of light, the task is completed. The journey ended. From the point of view of man, the journey is over. From the point of view of those who have achieved, the journey has but begun. Thus each man and woman makes the metamorphosis from man to God. Out of the chrysalis of matter, with all its limitations, emerges the liberated Master, radiating the light of God. Across the vastness of the universe, the light persists. Through all dimensions and planes, it expresses its nature, conditioned only by the forms in which it shows itself. These forms give access to the light, to those whose consciousness rests in the world of matter. But essentially, light is formless, needing no structure to sustain its being. Deep within each one of us dwells such a light, awaiting the opportunity to shine forth. Within each glows the potential of all cosmos. Within each, too, is the will to bring forth that light and thus make manifest the nature of God. That light and that will pertain to the soul and come into activity as a result of the soul alignment. Seek, therefore, alignment with the soul, and bring into manifestation the purpose of God. Search within and find the source of all knowledge and love. Reveal to the world the light of the soul, and join the ranks of those who serve. The world stands ready for more light. The peoples everywhere are thirsty for new knowledge of themselves and of God. Because of this readiness, the Masters have prepared themselves to inaugurate a new era of light. Limitless opportunities for progress will be offered to mankind. Man will marvel at the discoveries which will open the door to mastery of natural forces. He will stand amazed by the wonder and beauty thus revealed. He will know for certain the fact of God and his relation to that divinity, and will enter willingly into cooperation with the divine plan. All of this awaits humanity as it stands at the threshold of the Aquarian age. This will be an age in which the divine plan will flourish once again, bringing man at last into conscious acceptance of his destiny. Many today would doubt this as they survey a world of cleavage and tension. The problems seem too complex, the divisions too extreme. But precisely then, at the moment of greatest need, comes the teacher, ready to bring new light. Such a one is now among us, waiting in the wings patiently for the invitation to serve. Release the light that he brings and unfold all things in holiness. Embrace his teachings and bring succor to all in need. Manifest his light and create anew this world.
Peter, earlier you were saying there that we are all a spark of God.
Yes, exactly that. And
Are we? Is that paraphrasing what is written in the Bible, that we are all a son of God?
we are indeed sons of God, of the one God. Because we are a spark of the God, our soul actually comes from that spark. It's an intermediate vehicle that the spark of God in us has created to help us. It's like a stepping stone, stepping down the information.
So that individualisation of the oversoul becomes the monad. Is that correct?
It is the monad.
And
yeah,
it's the monad that reflects down
into the soul.
into the
soul
solar
is
angel that is the soul.
It is its first vehicle, the
And
soul.
that's right. And then the soul reflects down to us.
And the soul is what
Right.
incarnates lifetime after lifetime.
Yeah.
And so don't expect to have the same physical body next time. You could
Yeah.
be a girl.
Yeah.
It's so it is. Whatever the soul decides, the soul creates its own body and creates it like a hologram, if you like, with light. And I was listening to Dr. Jacob Leiberman, and he's an expert on light. He's actually an optometrist, and so he's actually written a lot about light. And I've sort of been following him for years because he says that light going through our eyes is for the brain and body, not just for seeing. And it's an interesting concept because the light is needed not only it's just needed for the whole functioning of our body. In actual fact, the cells in our body actually communicate with each other by light. And that light communicates with the cells, and then right at the wall of the cell, there's a chemical reaction. But the light is needed in the body. In other words, if we use sunglasses, for example, all the time without relief, we don't get the ultraviolet light through the eyes, which we need. It goes into the hypothalamus, and it works also in the pineal gland, which is considered to be the seat of the soul. It's certainly the seat of consciousness in humans. And so, we've got to be aware of the amazing effects of light. Light, after all, is actually the essential energy behind all the energy in every atom. And so the scientists are now realizing this energy and matter thing that Einstein talked about, the interchange of them being similar, is actually true. And this light is actually the basis of all atomic energy. And so light actually runs the physical world that we see and also the world that we don't see, because it's working on the etheric levels, it's also working on the astral levels, it's working on the mental levels. And they're all atomic levels. And then, of course, as we change our body, as we become more enlightened, we actually build more subatomic particles, which is actually light, photons itself, into our bodies. Eventually, at the fourth initiation, we are totally infused with light, And we can create a light body at the fifth initiation.
And Jesus of Nazareth was a fourth degree initiate.
That's right, yes. So he no longer needed a physical body. And this, of course, is one of the mysteries of his overshadowing by the Christ himself.
It's really interesting what you've been saying, Peter, because I had somebody ask me recently, what is the meaning of life? The plan is evolution. It is matter becoming spiritualized through light.
Yes.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
And you've just articulated it very well.
Do it in our own body first.
So where it's spirit descending into matter, scooping through matter in the life that we know, and then taking that matter back to spirit through this process of enlightenment.
Yes, exactly.
So it's descending, living, and then rising.
Exactly.
Okay, well, we're done here, guys. That's the world solved.
And speaking of the art of living, John's coming up next.
This is the Emergence News on Plains FM. For more information, go to shareinternational.org.
Welcome back to Emergence News. Great to have your company. He's warmed up now. The thermals are working. Here's John.
Hi, guys. Look, thanks very much, and thank you, listeners, for plugging into us once again. Fabulous discussion here around this table, and Peter is always a tough act to follow. So I'm going to see what I can do. I picked up Benjamin Creme's book, The Art of Living, Living Within the Laws of Life. It's one of his slimmer books, but it has got some great ideas for how to construct a life for yourself. So I'm going to jump right into it, page 26, because my task is to have a little bit of a look at what we call the law of sacrifice. And I'm going to use Creme pretty much because he dispels quite nicely the negativity that is around the religious connotations of sacrifice.
The word sacrifice.
The word sacrifice. And it's almost in our Western culture got quite a negative. And what he's saying is actually part of life. So I'll leave it up to Benjamin Creme. And here he goes. He starts with, I've talked about the law of karma, the law of rebirth, and the law of harmlessness. But the law of sacrifice is perhaps more difficult to understand. So already he's told us the four laws: karma, rebirth, harmlessness, and sacrifice. He goes on to say, the great law of sacrifice is the very nature of evolution. We proceed in evolution through the sacrifice, always within ourselves, of the lower to the higher. That is a key concept, lower to the higher. So he goes on to tell us, the soul's bodies of expression, the physical, astral, emotional, and mental are just vehicles. Maitreya calls them the temples of the self, and that's self with a big S, through which the self can see and watch the evolution of the soul in incarnation, the becoming of ourselves as God. That process is done by refining the matter of the physical, astral, and mental equipment, refining them each life a little more, bringing into them more light, which is what he talks about, these subatomic particles of matter. And as Peter referred to, bringing in that light into our vehicles of matter, vehicles of dense energy, and bringing light in. As the bodies gradually change, the nature and demands of the physical body change. Likewise, those of the astral, emotional, and finally the mental body also change. Now, I read some stuff from Creme a number of years ago, and he talked about the physical body. All it wants to do is eat, sleep, fornicate, and rest. Not necessarily in that order. But they are the four things it wants to do. So, dear listeners, if you're doing more than those four things with your life, you're well on the path to evolutionary development. But that has stuck with me. I found that so amusing. Yes. Every time I'm not doing one of those four things, I think I must be doing something right. Anyway, I find Benjamin Creme amusing as well. Okay.
Well, he had a great sense of humour.
A fabulous sense of humour. Anyway, I digress. Each change registers for the self watching this process a shifting of status of the man or woman in incarnation through the laws of karma and rebirth, working under the law of harmlessness and undergoing this process of the law of sacrifice. Each shift in the quality of energy of the physical, astral or mental bodies marks a degree of change, which is a sacrifice because the lower is always sacrificed for the higher. So he's saying that's a normal process. Moving upwards is normal. Yeah, and if you're stuck at a certain level, that is not normal. So this sacrifice is actually a gentle process. And he goes on to say...
But you've got to be conscious of the process.
I think you do. Yeah.
That's the secret. That's the ticket, isn't it?
Yeah, I think you've got to be able to say in your life, you know what, that's the lower part of my life, and this is the highest, the higher, and then make a choice. So he's saying every advance that we make is the result of a sacrifice of the lower, the desires and demands of the physical body. I've already talked about those four. The attachments and desires of the emotional body, the conditioning of the mental body. The sense of the separated self has to disappear. So the focus has to come off the vehicles and go onto either the higher or onto service, humanity. When the ultimate demand, a complete sacrifice of the sense of self happens, we are saved. That is salvation. And taking it out of a religious connotation. That is something which each of us has to do for ourselves. That is the ultimate goal of evolution, of humanity on this planet. Then we are a master. We are free from this planet forever. We are free from the pull of matter forever. This bringing of light into the vehicle time after time is like dying to the past and being reborn to the future. I think that's a lovely concept. It's exactly what you were talking about, Peter. That bringing the light in changes us and moves us ahead. The future being that which takes you along the evolutionary cycle to salvation or perfectionment. The great law of sacrifice is basic to the evolutionary process. Benjamin Creme tells us that is a lot, and it's hard for a lot of people to contemplate because they think sacrifice is painful. But he's saying this type of sacrifice is actually a gentle evolutionary process. Yes, it's driven by some conscious thought maybe. Yes, it's driven by that evolutionary impulse. But it's not painful. It's not bashing yourself and with flagellation. It's not crawling across.
No, it's a mother looking after a child. She sacrifices herself to dedication of the child. And that
boom.
Sort of...
That's it right there. I'm done. Peter's just finished it for me.
Although
that is exactly everyday life sacrifice. Absolutely, Peter. Well said.
There could be some pain involved, though, John, particularly if the choice you're making is in the process of releasing yourself from addiction.
But it
a physical addiction, for example.
It appears to be pain until you let it go, until you've moved. The pain is in the attachment. Yeah. But addiction, I think, is probably a different thing. Addiction is one of those things that needs to be absolutely dealt with on that physical level as well. So, yeah, I think that's a little bit harder. But certainly we know that addiction can be dealt with. And we know that it's a spiritual path to do that. Yeah. Maitreya has said addiction occurs in a spiritual vacuum.
Yeah, spiritual starvation.
Yes, yeah. And AA, which is the most successful addiction process on the planet, has 12 steps, and they have divine principles in them.
It's a spiritual process, isn't it?
It's a spiritual process. Anyway, Benjamin Creme goes on to say, we have to learn the art of living. It's an art form and can only be learned as we go. It is not something that you can teach, but you can teach the rudiments, the laws. Teach the laws and the rules which stem from them. The law of cause and effect, the law of rebirth, the law of harmlessness, and the law of sacrifice. And you have taught the basics of life. Life proceeds under these laws, and the sooner we make them instinctive parts of our life, the sooner we will have a reasonably coordinated and harmonic life and world. It is a world filled today with anxiety and fear. The nature of life should be the very opposite. One day, with the help of Maitreya and the Masters, it will be so. All this information can be found on the Share International website, www.share-international.org. Scorpio Books in Christchurch carries the magazine and some books. And also don't forget the podcasts, which are available on the Plains FM website.
We welcome your comments, questions and feedback. Please contact us at emergencenews@gmail.com.
The opportunity to join our transmission is available Monday and Wednesday evenings and Thursday mornings, which gives us the possibility to do a service meditation in conjunction with Masters.